Hey, welcome to Repair University Live, the personal protection episode designed for Larry.
I got it.
Completely for Larry.
Hey, Larry, that is the wrong size. Just saying.
What was that, a fat joke?
No, I'm just saying.
Strangers in the night, exchanging glances.
And
Dip?
be sure not to miss the HR episode coming out.
Yes.
How was that against HR? I didn't do anything.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you create an uncomfortable work environment.
The suit's not uncomfortable. I asked first. Do you want to dance?
Did it ask back?
Not my problem. They didn't answer.
All right, so let's get to it, boys. Considering we'll fold up our paint suit here. We're going to get to that a little bit later.
Yep.
Personal protection episode.
Yep.
And this one, we hope is a little interactive. We'd like to take some questions and cover some things with some people there as we go through them. You are not allowed to touch. Now you can't touch the paint suit.
And this is a topic. So this is a topic that, as we were talking, is near and dear to my heart because it actually changed the course of my career.
Yeah. So tell us that story, Mark.
Well, so back in the 80s, I was spraying lacquer, which spot repairs and acrylic enamel for your regular repairs, and this really cool product called Deltron came out.
That's a nice product.
And they said it sprayed just like lacquer. So I sprayed it just like lacquer. I didn't wear a respirator. Never did that with lacquer. Mm-hmm. Kind of like the buzz, right? Back in the 80s. So basically, I was spraying it, and the isocyanates got into me, and I passed out. And then the paramedics came, and this is in January of 1985. And the paramedics came, and they said, okay, what were you doing? And blah, blah, blah. And the people around said, oh, this is the stuff. They went, isocyanates. They went, oh, that's the same stuff that just blew up that plant in Bhopal, India. We don't know how to handle that on a medical level in the hospital, so here's a bottle of oxygen, hope you live, and they left. When I walk into shops today,
hope you live.
Hope you live. See it? Well, they didn't. In hospitals, they're like, well, that's bad. We can't take you to the hospital. And I'm like, okay. So I, sucked the oxygen and everything was good. But when I walk into paint departments, still to this day, that's what is that? 30, 40 years ago?
Yeah.
At least 30 years ago, I still get the twinge. I walk in and I get the PPG twinge or the Exalta twinge, and they're all a little different. So I'm a little chemically toxic, not to the point where I can't breathe or anything, but but I didn't follow personal protection, and we didn't in the 80s.
Isocyanate sensitivity affects people in a lot of different ways. All the way to some people that have to leave the shop.
I don't know, Larry,
completely.
did you ever wash your hands with lacquer thinner?
Oh, plenty of times.
Yeah. That's
then
what
I
we did
found
in the
out
80s.
that it soaks through the skin, and you later on, urinate it out, so it has to go through your kidneys and everything. Yeah. I was like, if beer works like that, it's probably not so bad for you. But I don't think lacquer thinners is really
probably not a good thing.
Yeah. Probably not a good thing.
Yeah. So today we're going to cover some personal protection issues. Now, we are not going to address everything that there is out there. That would be like a 3-week show. We're going to hit some highlights, and we're going to talk a little bit about how estimating is affected by personal protection, which a lot of shops miss or don't even think about.
Right.
So we'll go through that today. Jason does have a question about the new crystal silica rule that's coming out in June. We'll talk about that a little bit at the end, but just don't let us forget that when that came up. So there are 3 areas of safety to discuss today. Right, so there is personal protection equipment what the technician wears to protect themselves, or the estimator. We're going to talk a little bit about what estimators should and shouldn't be wearing.
Right.
There is the legal requirements, 1 of the employer, 2 of the employee, and then estimating that on your estimates, what's included and not included, and what charges you should or shouldn't be thinking about when completing your estimates.
Correct.
So we got a lot to cover. We got a table full of stuff to go through. So let's get to it.
So all kinds of things in the shop that we want to protect ourselves from. Obviously, isocyanates. If you get people in accidents, you get blood potentially in the cars. So we got bloodborne pathogens, flammables, reactives, allergens, irritants, VOCs, corrosives, toxins, carcinogens, sharp objects. I mean, there's just all kinds of things that can damage you in your body. So we got to protect ourselves from that. So it's the skin, eyes, ears, lungs.
And I got a lot of options available out there for that, from everything from hearing protection to eye protection to skin protection to lung protection.
Foot protection.
Foot protection. I mean, the list of available products is endless, and the list of required products is almost as endless out there. So lots to get to. But personal protection, what we wear, and then there's also some personal protection that's equipment. In the shop as well. So we have some options there.
And it's also vehicle protection as well. So we got kind of we got you, and then we got the car and the surrounding cars around it too.
Right, and part of your OSHA regulations is not only, I can go into a shop a lot of times and the technician actually physically working on the car is appropriately dressed
Sure.
and protected. It's the 3 guys around him
that aren't.
And the vehicles
and
that aren't protected, or the vehicle sometimes isn't protected by having weld blankets or the 3M spark paper, or even anyone walking by isn't protected because they don't want to have their welding screens up, which are required a lot of times, not only by the government, but OSHA, but by also many state and town and provisional type rules, regulations, and stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah, and normally we find those primarily the welding screens.
Oh, they're in the buffing department.
They're in the detail department.
Yeah.
Which is not where we're welding.
They're being used as buffing screens.
Yeah.
So
Right.
buy some more.
Right. But when you're thinking about protecting the people around you, it goes well beyond just the welding screens. We think about that a lot for vision protection, et cetera. But I hear a lot of people go, well, hey, a 3-ounce cup, right? I can spray out in the shop.
And they're wearing a respirator.
No.
But nobody else is.
Yeah, it's that airborne, and as it goes down the shop, that the guy's 2, 3, 4 stalls down.
Yep, they're breathing
That's
it.
going to cost you $10,000
If you
a
can
tank.
see air or smell air, you probably shouldn't be breathing it.
Right.
And that's pretty much what it comes down to. So if you can see it or smell it, you probably shouldn't breathe it.
Yep.
Without some sort of without some sort of protection being on there for you.
Yep.
Yep.
We're having a little trouble advancing our screen here.
Okay.
The wonders of live, right?
So exactly. So
All right.
let's just kind of look here. I just went on the internet, pulled some stuff off. So I've had a piece of metal in my eye. I know you have too, Larry, and it's pretty great because you get to go to the doctor and then they take a suction thing, they pull the metal out of your eye.
Hi.
And then the great part is now that it's steel and it's rusted, now they got to take this drill bit thing and grind the rust out of your eyeball.
Yeah.
And the problem is you can't. You want to close your eye so you don't have to look, but it's in your eye, so you have to. So there's a drill bit coming towards your eye to wipe it out.
Yeah.
So
And you can't close your eye.
And you can't close your eye.
It's a very special scenario that happens.
Yeah. So obviously, we got protecting your skin, your lungs from particulate, isocyanates, and also chemical burns.
Chemical burns?
When chemicals get on your skin, it burns.
Yeah, I
And
don't know
well
how many
burns.
times I see technicians out in the shop and they're not even wearing gloves and it's short sleeve t-shirts and shorts and they're welding a cardigan.
Well, and you can always tell the guy that welds a lot without the proper leather protection because they've got holes all the way up their sleeves.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or they've got little pock marks all over their hand or their wrist because of the welding.
Right, so there are a lot of things that are involved there. As a repair shop owner, if I fail to require my technicians to do that, it is as guilty as the technician not.
Correct.
We're actually going to be going into the legal aspect, the money aspect, and the responsibilities of the employer and the employee.
Yeah, so I meet with a lot of shops as we cover this topic that go, well, the guys don't either, one, ask for it, they didn't ask for that, or two, well, they're fine, that's how they've always been doing it, Kristen.
Well, you're supposed to supply it, and you're supposed to require them to wear it as part of their employment, or you can fire them.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. I mean, they don't follow orders.
Well, many shops that we walk into across the country, they got that thing on the wall that says eye protection is required beyond this point, and there's a little box got the safety glasses in it. Then you walk out in the shop and nobody's wearing safety glasses.
Right.
Well, part of that is when I tell a shop that he goes, well, the guys never use it. That's worse. That's the worst statement you just made to me.
Yep.
Because if you can prove to a shop, you can prove that the shop owner had some gross negligence. You were aware that nobody was ever following safety precautions, and now I've lost a limb or an eye or whatever. It's not just a workers' compensation issue as much as it is a gross negligence claim, and then that gets millions of dollars.
And it gets really expensive.
So it grows on you. And here, thank God
Just
for
some stuff on the
thank
internet.
God for Facebook, right?
Yeah.
So whenever somebody tells me something won't happen or can't happen, it gets
find it.
posted on Facebook.
Yep.
So some of the more common things that have happened lately, and we are going to cover hair and beards. So it's trendy right now. Everybody's growing the big long beards. It wasn't something that we saw for forever, but that's a safety issue.
It absolutely is.
So
And also wearing ties. You go in the shop and the people are estimators. They're wearing ties, and they're going into and the engines are running, and I mean,
Years
there's some
ago,
safety issues.
I remember a lot of adjusters had them on, and the insurance company stopped it. And back in the '80s, and look, I go into dealerships sometimes, and I see shop estimators in the body shop department walking around cars. It's like, hey, you shouldn't be wearing that tie.
No.
Well, it's a requirement by the company. Okay, so you'll wind up dead because your company tells you to, which is another asinine thing to do. Wear a suit and tie and be in the collision repair
Wedding rings.
area.
Wedding rings,
yeah.
Yeah.
Wedding rings is another issue with
I've
some
seen
people.
some really nasty finger bones. that
Watches
started
and
because of-
watches can sometimes scratch the car.
Absolutely.
You know, a keychain or chain or anything hanging
Force
off
you
your
out of the shop, dude.
Well, and so for that reason, so my ring that I have here, it actually is soft enough metal you can cut them off. There are some rings that are made out of metals that you can't cut.
Yeah.
So you can't even get it off your finger. The only way to get it off your finger is to cut your finger off.
Yeah, ouch.
That was on purpose, the metal I got for this ring.
Wow. So there are other things in the shop that we got to be aware of too.
Yeah. So the MSDS, all the safety programs that are there. Also,
Most of the shops we walk in, though, think about it. How
Yeah.
many times do you see the bucket with the black and white striping around it in some place inside the shop that says MSDS sheets? That's available to every technician, everybody inside the shop. And that's a violation of the rules and regulations. You're supposed to have those readily available for
Absolutely.
every product you have inside the shop.
Well, we
And-
actually asked the technicians, "Where's your MSDS?" They're like, "Oh, I don't know," and they have to know.
Oh, they ask you what that is.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's true. That's true.
So
That's true. And then
not
product,
that we don't know where it's at. What is that?
but then product labeling too. So when you say that you're taking a spray bottle and you're mixing a chemical and putting it in a spray bottle in the detail department and it's not labeled,
Oh, yeah, that's another.
that's a big problem.
My favorite always was you watch guys go through the shop and let's say this is a rag, not a glove. Now they'll walk over and they're looking for a clean rag and they'll go like this.
Yep.
Okay, I could use this. Now I understand it's dried and you're not sure what's on there, so you sniff it, and I guess
Yeah.
the sniff test tells you that it's okay to use.
way better than
But
the
what
lick
happens
test.
if I just wipe something down with Lacquer is you can do one of these, and you're going to
gonna-
pass out
you're gonna pass out,
immediately
yeah.
because you just asphyxiated yourself.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then like compressed gas cylinders, making sure that you have them chained so they can't fall over in any circumstances.
And there's only a certain amount you're allowed
Absolutely.
by your town or state or borough or providence or whatever
And
it's
then
called
also
in your area.
putting
But it's only a certain amount per-
flammables with oxygen. In many areas, you can't even store those next to each other. So you
Well,
got to be
because
aware of that.
Fire needs what?
Oxygen.
Oxygen.
Yeah.
So you're
And then-
over on
and
oxygen.
what about grounding of your flammables? So you got your thinner barrel, that's got to be grounded. Your cabinet, that yellow thing there, that's a grounded cabinet. So you got to
Well,
ground that
how
to
many
a pipe.
times do you see that they have a big 55-gallon drum here that they're putting waste lacquer thinners in? Right next to that is the waste, urethane material from either priming or painting. They got the solid one sitting over there that it's got cured in it, or they might be also using waterborne.
Yep.
Well, now if you have all three of those together near each other, which are highly flammable mixed together
Yep.
in the gaseous area, and you have an electrical spark that will build in the baseball memorial park where your shop once stood.
Yep.
And guys just don't realize that. Oh no, I'll put all the chemical stuff over there.
Yep.
You can't. You have to have it separated.
Yep.
Yeah. And there's a lot there. So we
Well,
had a
we
couple-
also walk into explosion rooms, the mixing rooms and stuff. And
Explosion room.
Well, explosion proof room. So basically, yeah. So bottom line
Is that like
when
that Daffy Duck trick where he drinks a nitrogen? I can only do it once.
well, you walk in and you can turn the light on, but then the fan is a separate switch.
Yes.
So oftentimes you go in, turn the light on, and there's no fan. You have to go actually turn the fan on. Now, if you're thinking about it, you would have it if the light's on, the fan's on.
Right.
Otherwise,
Yeah.
it's another problem as well. So,
Yeah.
so and there's also respirator fit testing and care of that stuff. We'll talk a little bit more, and then also training of people for proper use of this. So there's a lot to it.
Yeah, I'm surprised at many shops that we visit that don't have PPE and safety training by department as
Right.
a standard thing they do monthly.
Yep.
So it helps. There's a lot of cost reduction on your insurance when you offer that kind of benefits to your employees. So there's a lot there, but one, it's just personal safety.
I mean, every shop should have a safety committee and do monthly safety meetings.
Yeah, exactly.
How many shops run a fire drill?
I don't think I've ever heard of one.
Every day on Friday when it's payday. Shop's empty.
Who's the fireman supposed to walk around the shop to make sure that everyone's out of the building? Who's outside to coordinate with the fire department to tell them where all the hazardous explosive chemicals are?
I don't think I've ever had a shop ever
Who's
do
your
that.
exit buddy?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But it's stuff you need to think about, especially the larger shops.
All right, so let's talk about one of the major things that that OSHA tends to hit shops for violations. In fact, they covered that in a CIC presentation in April and December, is basically respirators. So we think of respirators often when we're in the paint department. We don't think about them very well when we're in the body department. So there are different types of respirators for different
depending on what you're doing. Yeah, so you got your standard little particle mask. This is this is only for dust. Now, if there's any chemicals in the dust,
like sanding a base
coat, this is not your respirator.
Correct.
So then this one goes for welding. And then when you start to get into the isocyanates, there's a couple different ways to do it. And this welding one right here has fresh air to the welding helmet. And then this one right here is the cartridge type. Now, a couple things about this. First of all, these things, when they're exposed, they wear out. So what?
That's working right now.
Right now it's working. And I opened this package yesterday, and so the clock starts to tick. I got 30 days to completely use it up. And I get 40 hours of atmospheric exposure. So that means that this is going to last a full-time employee 1 week. And when they're done, they got to take it off, put it back into a sealed bag. Okay?
You don't wear it on your head.
In a sealed bag and change my cartridges.
And change the cartridges, yeah. Now the other thing, and you see.
Let's just pause a little bit, Mark, because I still see, and I'm still surprised, I see a lot of painters using those. I do see the body techs now starting to use them a little bit. Unfortunately, I still see a lot of body techs.
Like this. They walk around the shop like this.
Sanding
on top of the head.
Yeah, with an isocyanate issue, but still using basically a particulate filter. 1 week. So again, I got to change that cartridge every
week, every 40 hours.
For
every 30 days
of them that's in the shop.
Exactly.
So that right there is kind of the things where we say if you're not using at least a can of cavity wax a week, you're not doing it right. If we were honest and asked technicians how many are changing their cartridges every week. Now, who has to supply those cartridges to the technicians?
The owner.
The shop owner.
Shop owner.
That is a shop expense.
Absolutely.
Okay. So when I'm making sure that I'm estimating appropriately and I'm determining my fixed operations costs and everything, this is a cost the shop needs to be building into their charges.
Sure.
Correct.
Sure, and you can set that up for however you want to bill on your estimate. But again, if you want to line item it, it's one conversation. You want to build in your overhead and your materials or body materials or whatever you do, but you got to charge for
whatever you do. But it's not optional.
No, it's not.
You can't say
you really
and you can't say, well, okay, I only sprayed with it once, and then 6 weeks later I picked it up to do it again. 30 days later, that's done.
Now, if I take it off. I run in the paint booth, I paint something, I come back and I throw it in a Tupperware container. Does that extend the life of it?
Not beyond the 30 days.
Not beyond the 30 days.
It only is the exposure for 40 hours. So I get a little bit better on my 40 hours, but at the end of 30 days, I'm throwing it away.
Regardless.
Whichever comes first, 40 hours or 30 days, whichever comes first.
Yeah, and then the other thing that...
So full day in the paint booth, I'm probably exposing it for 5 hours anyway.
5 to 7 hours probably.
So even though I'm storing it in a Tupperware container or I'm storing it at night, it's still every week, really. If you're a productive body shop, it's every week.
Yeah, and then the other thing, and you've seen in the commercials, they talk about CPAPs, where you got to clean your CPAP of all the germs and this and that. Well, think about this. We have to clean our respirators for all the germs and things that get into them because you're breathing and all that kind of stuff. So we've got to clean the respirators as well because there's germs in there.
And wipe them out with alcohol wipes, which most like 3M supplies. So a question that's coming in that says, please address the respirators that protect you from isocyanates. And basically, that's the one from 3M. That's the one you most commonly see. That's the one we have here at the shop. Obviously, we'll get to the refinishing department for fresh air for paint.
But I mean, if you really want to protect yourself the best in any of the departments, I mean, obviously welding and obviously painting with isocyanates, you want to have a fresh air respirator type of thing that's running through and stuff like that. That's the best way. The second best way is pick the right respirator from the right company. And there's filters that can be added to this too to give you extra protection for things too. There's little filters that can go on there.
So the manufacturer of whatever, I mean, obviously we're big 3M fans here, so we have a lot of 3M laying around, but there are other companies that make respirators. The manufacturer will tell you which respirator is for isocyanates. It'll tell you what the expectancy and use of their cartridges is and care and upkeep. So if you have a vendor, whoever you're buying, it's your jobber, whether it's our NCS or our single source friends, they will tell you what they have in stock. They will tell you what they have in stock is rated for and when you should use it,
Yep.
and use your jobber a lot for safety. Let them come in
Yep.
and walk through with that. But you'll want to make sure you have an isocyanate one. I think the thing that people forget the most is that isocyanate exposure is not just in the paint department to the painter. It's sanding.
And it's also not just for the lungs. It'll go through your eyes.
Yeah.
It likes moist surfaces.
It does. So you can get it.
And that's why this is, these type of apparatuses are probably the best, because this you'll still have to wear some sort of eye protection, and not these glasses, which are more or less for sparks or stuff flying in, because there's passages here. You need something that's gonna suck up to the side of your face and kind of make contact with your skin, so it locks in.
Yeah, and then one other thing. So beards, we talked about this. Beards are kind of popular and all that. So if I take this and I want it to seal onto my face, and I want the air to be coming through these filters, if I have a beard, it's going to go through my beard.
You'll fail the pressure test.
Exactly.
With a beard, and OSHA will come in immediately, and they'll just ticket anybody who's got a beard that's working inside the shop.
Unless you're using fresh air. The only option if you have a beard is fresh air.
Right. That's the great thing about this setup from SADA is the positive pressure in it. You can be a painter with a beard, but I can't think. I get asked this all the time. I just can't think of allowing body men to have beards, because their exposure level the way it is, and the body man really is in a mask almost more than the painter is.
Well, even this with a beard, or this with a beard, it doesn't work.
Doesn't work.
Because it'll go around.
Yeah.
You might as well just take your beard and put it over your face and try and breathe in.
A question about the BOFA exam.
I don't know what the BOFA exam is.
I don't know what the BOFA exam is.
I'd have to look that up. I'm interested to see what that is. Check with Siri.
Yeah. Is that the beard fitment test?
I'm not sure what the BOFA exam is. It's coming from Jason from Penske. Once again, sometimes the dealers are required to do certain things through that, so I may not be sure that we might be doing it, not even realizing it.
And that may not be Jason. I know Jason has the question on the silica, the new silica rules for June. But if whoever is the BOFA exam, if you can give us a little bit more.
Or is that B of A?
Yeah. Well, Matt, maybe you can.
It might be Bank of America, B of A.
Yeah, just
Bank of America.
If you will text us back in and give us a little bit more clarity on that, that would be fantastic.
Yeah. So we want to be using the appropriate thing with the appropriate fit, and you're supposed to have a fit test to make sure you got the proper pressure, and you're not going to pass it with a beard.
Right. Well, and then let's go back. So when we talk about the appropriate chemical and specific material or whatever, when you are performing an operation, the people that make the MDS and the safety data sheets like 3M,
everyone has it.
Whether it's an adhesive, whatever you're spraying, will tell you if you're applying or using this product, this is the type of protection you have to have.
Yep.
And then you just match it up and you're good to go.
Yeah, so these are dangerous here, just if you're in a booth situation, just because it can go through your eyes. You really want to be face shielded.
Yeah, well, the most dangerous thing I see is that little dust mask is great. If I'm mowing my yard,
perfect.
Fantastic.
You're cutting wood with your chop saw.
Possibly buffing and detail operations, okay with that.
Yeah.
Body shop side, not a lot.
If you can, like Larry said, if you can smell it.
Yeah, and I'm not positive that clears for. I'd have to look up exactly what that covers, but I'm not sure that even clears some of the buffing silica. Yeah, that could be an issue. I gotta have to check that one. I'm not positive. I don't know them all by heart. I need a chart myself to look at them, to tell you which one's fit for what. But that's good for dusting in your house. You dust in some area, going into a room you're not in, or your attic or something like that. It may be something like that or similar to that would be like if you're laying out fiberglass in your roof, inside your attic. Probably sheetrocking, sending the sheetrock stuff, but not when you get into some of this other chemical stuff.
It's all about the chemicals.
And once again, you can smell it. That it's no good to mask anymore, or it's not for that product.
Yep.
It's not for that operation that you're doing.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'll go in so many shops and the body tech's stripping a panel and he's wearing that, and it's like
Yeah.
So
exactly.
A lot of good options there. You want to check with your manufacturer, like you said, make sure you're matching it up, and then follow the life expectancy, because that's one of the things.
That's the big thing.
They're going to come in, they're going to see this hanging up. Maybe you're hanging this up in your paint department, and they're going to ask you, when'd you open it, when'd you start using it?
Yep.
So those are the questions you're going to ask.
Yeah, and a good practice is actually just write on there when you opened it, the date.
Yeah. But you're going through, like I said, you're going through.
You're going to go through a set a week.
A set of cartridges a week.
Yep.
And then that's a lot of money, right? And so it's very important.
Per employee.
per employee,
Yep.
and it's something the shop legally has to provide. It's not a maybe or whatever. It doesn't matter
Yeah.
if you're trying to say, well, I love it when the shops tell me that they 1099 their body techs. Well, I don't have to do it because they're 1099. No. You still have to do it.
Yeah.
You shouldn't 1099 them anyway. But even
Different
if you
conversation,
are,
but you still have to provide the
still have to
safety.
provide the
Yep.
PPE.
Yeah.
So how you pay your techs doesn't determine what you do or don't have to supply to them.
Protection-wise. We'll be going through what the legality of that is.
I love that when we get to this.
So electrical gloves. So we're going to start seeing a lot more electric cars, and we're seeing it now, the hybrids and all that. And so electrical gloves are really important. So there's kind of a 5 steps. So 5 steps are, first of all, there's date stamps. So the date that it was manufactured, you got 1 year to start the life cycle on those. So like right now, if I were to open up a package of gloves and the date stamp was June of 2017 that it was made, I have to take those gloves out and send them to a lab to get them checked.
I can't just start using them.
Nope, can't start using them. And then in August, but if it was August, I got some time there, okay? So there's testing labs you can send it to. There's also different classifications of what voltage and how you're gonna do it. And the one big thing about the gloves is that when you have a rubber glove on, you also have to have a leather glove over the top of that. Because otherwise, it could get cut,
Right.
and away it goes. So you actually kind of need 2 pairs of gloves, one that's electrical and one that's
Some
the
are
leather.
sold already built in that way, like Lyman's gloves for like a lot of the electric companies.
Yeah.
The only problem with those are they're usually very, very high voltage, and for grabbing bigger cables versus the smaller stuff we're working with.
The dexterity of your fingers
the
is not so
dexterity
good,
is not there, yeah.
And then you also have to do the glove air test. So there's a whole process, and there's a document you can just go out on the internet and grab, and it's I think we even have a picture right there.
Yep.
Here's the 5 things you should know about electrical gloves, and they go through all 5 of them. So if we get to the slide there, so they start talking about the date stamps and what I just explained. Okay, and so the next one is where you can send your gloves out to get them tested. But how many people are going to take their gloves and send them out to a lab to get tested to bring them back? And otherwise, they're just going to buy it.
I'm going to tell you how many people know that their gloves even have a date on them. So
Well,
let's say when the Prius first came to power,
Yep.
basically, was
Yep.
that 97, 98 or
Like
whatever?
that, yeah.
Right? And everybody went out and bought a set of gloves because you couldn't tow it without gloves.
Yep.
You couldn't touch it without gloves.
Right.
You couldn't breathe on it without gloves.
And they still have those gloves.
And those gloves are
Yes.
still in the shop.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they're no good.
They're no good. I would say just every 6 months, just buy
Buy a
another
new
set
pair.
of gloves. It's
Yep.
not worth. It's not worth sending it out to get. I think
Right.
they're $120 at Grainger, or $150 at Grainger, and basically all the companies, have the same Salisbury glove number, which is 1,000 volt rated and stuff.
Yep.
Fort Thomas 490. I don't want to remember the number, but I think that's the Salisbury number for it. And you buy it from Grainger, and just buy them every 6 months. Don't
Yep.
buy a whole
Whatever it
bunch.
is.
Just buy them every 6 months.
Yep.
And you don't need 20
Who's
gloves.
responsible for them?
Shop.
Shop owner. Responsible
owner,
for that. Now, do I have to supply that to every technician, or do I just have to have it available for when we are working on that hybrid?
You have to have it available for them when they're actually performing that. Now, let's talk about the estimator, though. Aren't they going to be going into, and they might grab an orange wire in there and start looking around for damages and all that? You might need to be wearing a pair of these
Slap
gloves.
my laptop right
Well,
straight down on top of the motor.
This is why you have to, when you get a hybrid in the shop, they all say the same thing. The car has to be disabled the entire time, and then you push it around on some dolly or go jacks or whatever system.
you can't
you're
let the
gonna
wheels
use.
roll.
Yeah.
Right. You never recharge the system again until the car is ready to leave. And you have a process you have to shut it down with, because plenty of guys don't shut it down the right way, and they go to restart it when they're done, and the car
Battery
will-
life's done.
Battery life, well, the battery life's done, or something went haywire with one of the modules or something, and something's not working, and now this becomes a problem.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, and then also there's the glove classifications, of course, that are sitting there, and the next one we go to is the glove air test. So basically, you want to, before you put them on, every time you want to blow them up. You have to expand them out to 1.5 times their original size, and you're going to do that every time, as long as you're complying with the time. It's less than a year, and you've got them tested out.
And the time is on that. So I think every shop right now is running around looking at their gloves.
I'm sure they are.
Trying to see. So if they're doing a lunch and learn, somebody went, hey, it's your turn to run out there and check
Yep.
them and gather them all up. But
Exactly.
yeah, it is something that it is seasonal, just like a cartridge,
Yep.
right? It's going to have short life expectancy. Again, shop's responsibility
Absolutely.
to provide, but
Yep.
not necessarily something you're going to have for every tech.
Right.
So respirators, every tech
Yep.
is going to have their own. But this is a situation where you might have a hybrid service kit that's at your shop.
I think you put together like a Rubbermaid cart with just your hybrid safety equipment on it.
Yep.
And you know, you could have all your stuff on there, including plastic type I don't know, tools that can be utilized on the hybrids in case you have to do something to the vehicle.
Yep.
And you know, paint it orange. You know, get a Rubbermaid cart and paint it orange, and have all the stuff on there so it's readily available to you. Even you know, my example is to always do what the fire department does: chock the wheels. Always put on the flashers, so you know if there's 1 or 2 12-volt batteries, and if you disconnect the battery and the lights are still flashing, guess what? You didn't get it.
You didn't get it. Yeah.
There's another battery, and you want to make sure that you have it disconnected properly.
Yep.
And once again, you always want to have, you know, access to the disconnect procedures, which you can readily get available online by just Googling, you know, the manufacturer and hybrid vehicle emergency responder, and it'll tell you exactly how to disable that system.
Yep.
You know, that's a smart thing to do. It's like a welding cart, which we'll talk about after.
Yep. And then you'll need to figure out who in your shop. As always, you probably want to designate the safety person. If you go to corporate America, you know, my time in the insurance industry, and even when I go and visit the paint companies,
There's somebody in
there's
charge of
always
that.
somebody in that building that's the safety Nazi for that year. Sometimes it's a rotating position. I know when I visit the paint companies,
but they're also in charge of meetings and all that stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Weekly training or whatever. Every shop needs one of those guys too, and rotate that position so everyone shares that
You
responsibility.
know, and then also if you say you try a new product, that product, the first time it walks into your shop, has to come with an MSDS sheet that gets put into the book. You can't just get the new product and go, oh, okay, well, and you forget about it, because all OSHA has to do is grab one of your products and go, oh, well, that looks like it's fairly new. Show me the MSDS.
Yeah.
You got to go to the book, it's not there.
Yeah.
You got a problem.
We harp that into our jobbers a lot, because a jobber will love to drop off a product and go, just test it out for a week, let me know.
Yep.
Right, because we want to make a sale.
Sure.
I hope you fall in love with it and that you start buying that regularly. From
But here's
me.
your MSDS.
Yeah, that's the one part we miss.
Yeah.
And we sometimes in that jobber realm set our shops up for fines because we're dropping off products we're trying to sell.
So this is another one. So the ANSA, it's a standard. It's a grinding wheel standard. Pretty cool. So if every body technician that's watching this right now, go to your grinding disc, and on there, where that red arrow's on the screen there, basically it says use in accordance with the ANSI B7.1 grinding standard.
You can't do that without eye protection.
Yeah. Oh. So it's 172 pages, this standard, and I was involved in the case a number of years ago, and when I was involved in the case, I had to read it. It was riveting. It was so good.
It's on the edge of your seat. I laughed, I cried. It was like a roller coaster ride.
But it covers a number of things. So how many of you have the cutoff wheel or the grinder, and you take the guard off?
Well, Mark, that guard gets in my way.
I know.
You know how many
But
different
that's in
angles I can cut
violation?
if I don't have a guard?
But that's in violation of ANSI B7.1. Number one. Number two, you also have a RPM rating on your disc. And a lot of the, how do I say it, non-mainstream type suppliers, they'll have their RPM rating will be about 10,000 or 12,000. This will go 30,000 RPM. These discs are designed to blow up in 3 pieces.
Right.
So it's going there, and it's going here. Without that guard in between me, I'm gonna get hit. Okay, with something going very quickly. We also, if this ever touches the floor, so this gets on the concrete and touches the floor, it's over. I can't take this now and use it again. So again, if you look at your disc, there's all kinds of different symbols and stuff that tell you what you can and can't do, but it's really guards, RPM matching, bodily safety, making sure you have the right stuff, sparks, eye protection, and then they also have about 15 pages on how to properly mount and torque the bolt so you don't fracture this when you put it on. So it's kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
It's grinding wheel standard. So so if you want a riveting read, go to Google.
You might scratch the car, but you're really going to hurt yourself badly.
Oh, yeah.
If that blows up. So you're the only one getting hurt.
So let's talk about eye protection, because we got a picture that we shared of a guy that saved his eyeball, lost his nose, but saved his eyeball.
So
when I'm using that, is it just a matter of just some safety glasses, or should I have a shield?
You need to have a shield.
Yeah,
You
shield's
just need to
probably the
have.
best thing.
You need to have a shield, and then what I also see other technicians doing is they have actually a pair of safety glasses and a shield. You know, because if this comes zinging off here, it's going to come off with some velocity, and you know this will protect your face, but then you want something for your eyes.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of the safety glasses by themselves, unless you're just like an estimator, or we're visiting a shop and we're just walking around because we know to stay away from that.
Yep.
But if you're working on something, especially with a shield or anything like that, even a welding mask, get something, either goggles that press right up against your face with like the foam to cause some sort of a seal, or the bigger goggles that go around that seal onto your face, because stuff can come around. Anybody who welds knows that it can bounce around the back of the mask and get in, hit your eye. Even though you're wearing that whole big mask, you should wear.
You're talking about the welding dance when the welding things go down to your shoe and you
Yes,
dance around the
exactly.
shop for a minute?
And then you always get your foot stuck in a 5-gallon, white pail drum, and you can't get it off, and you're walking around with it clunk, 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 and you got to go over and get the little baby sawzall to cut your foot out of
Does
the
this happen
snare.
to you?
Yes, it has.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, speaking of which, like you said, we're smart enough to know. We walk around a shop wearing these. We know where to go, where not to go. We know where to wait. How many adjusters you think know those things?
Every adjuster, everybody that walks into the back of the shop should be putting on safety glasses.
And you're, as a shop owner, you're kind of liable for them, aren't you? Because they're on your property?
Well, how about when you walk through a shop and, you especially like, in the morning, I usually notice this, you walk into a shop and you see everybody working, and as you walk into the shop, all of a sudden you start seeing that whole cloud of mist and dust and dirt. Even sometimes with a vacuum system, you're walking into that.
Yeah, and you're
it's almost
breathing that.
like I want to do this,
Well,
and then try and walk through and hold my breath.
Larry and I were at a shop recently, and we kind of lost it. Like, I know you're surprised. I know you're surprised that Larry and I lost it. I think what most people would be surprised to know is that I actually lose it way before he does. So
I've been with you.
Yeah. So, but we had an insurance company drive their little vehicle behind the shop, backed up to the shop door, gets out. The technician's actually working on the car. He's welding.
Yeah.
And the adjuster's just walking up to it and just doing all this, because, I got to write my supplement. Get the hell out of the shop.
Yeah.
But because they didn't have a sign-in sheet and they didn't have a process, we had adjusters coming and going, and they don't know that, Mark, if you're working on this car in this stall and you're using that cutoff wheel, I need to be safe over here, because when it does shatter in 3 pieces, it's coming my way, right?
Well, and you bring up something really important, is the sign-in sheet. Because the employees are kind of governed under there's
well,
employment
because
contracts and
they're
stuff.
getting paid by the shop, so
Exactly.
they're under the garageman's insurance
But now,
policy.
when a customer comes in, or an adjuster, or anybody, there's no legal contract. So they come in and they catch a piece of metal in their eye, they slip and they fall.
You might be legally responsible on your own.
You
not the
actually
company.
are legally responsible for them coming through your shop. So many shops, that's what they're doing, is a sign-in sheet, and and I know that a lot of adjusters go, "Oh, I'm not signing in." It's like, well, then you can't go in the shop.
Yeah. I've been excited lately. We have seen, Larry and I talked about this in our estimating classes. We teach it. Do not let adjusters just on the property. I was an adjuster.
Yeah.
So it's not like I'm picking on them in a way. You love me.
I was, I was too.
Yeah,
I was.
But I like to see a lot of it. Now they're making them sign in. They're wearing hard hats. They're wearing safety vests.
Yeah.
They're wearing
The funniest thing
goggles.
I've seen, and I've seen it over the years, well, not funniest, it's an unfortunate thing. How many adjusters do you know, and I know you worked for years that way and you worked for a while, how many adjusters you saw come in and they either have a cane, or they have crutches, or they broke an ankle, sprained an ankle, or hurt their knee because they did what? Fell off a frame machine. Because they climbed up on top of the frame machine to go look at a car for a supplement, and they got injured getting on and off the frame machine because they didn't want to wait for somebody to come by. I had one adjuster that actually got like a snare trap. He climbed up on top of a milk box. Which isn't bad because you're lifting your weight up. But coming off the frame machine, you have a lot more force coming down with your whole weight, and he went through the center of it. And so, of course, it scraped up his leg and everything like that. And, you can get hurt that way. You have to watch.
Well, technically, though, and let's talk about the legality side of that. So, if you're an adjuster, you're in the shop, you slip, you fall, it's actually a workman's comp claim.
Right.
Now, workman's comp's going to say, well, wait a minute, where were you and what were you doing? So now it's not the adjuster personally suing you, it's actually workman's comp coming after you to get their money back.
A workers' comp doesn't negate liability.
No, I got
so
it.
I can make a workers' comp claim against my employer, because I used to have to.
No, but what I'm saying is they're going to go after the owner of the shop.
Yeah, but I'm also going to go after liability as well. You
Absolutely.
let me in your shop, you let me get on a frame rack that you knew I shouldn't have been on, or you let me walk in while someone was welding and I get flash burn or whatever. I'm still going to come in.
So how many shops do you have it where the door from the office opens into the paint department? You walk through the paint department to get to body.
Yeah.
Shouldn't you be wearing a respirator when you walk through there? But one of these?
Or if I can smell it in the lobby, I have a problem.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
Some things to think about. So, let's talk about
Responsibility.
the employer responsibility. So that's what I get this question a lot
Yep.
from technicians going, what does my employer have to give me?
Yep. Well, so I went to the OSHA website and I pulled this off. So basically, they got to perform a hazard assessment of the workplace to identify and control the physical and health hazards, identify and provide appropriate PPE for the employees.
Yeah, so let's stop there. Appropriate PPE. I get asked all the time from painters, does my boss have to buy me a fresh air hood? And the answer is no.
No.
They don't.
No.
They have to provide you PPE, and
Right.
if this fits, if I'm wearing the right goggles,
that
or
works,
the right
yeah.
hood, and the right whatever,
Yep.
I would sit down with my employer and figure out cost, benefits, and
Yeah,
happiness.
but I also see people taking the fresh air hood and they clip it right into their regular compressor.
Oh.
Well, it fits.
Well,
It
there is
plugs
a
it in.
Yeah, no, you
If
shouldn't
you
do
don't,
that.
if you're not coming off a filtered system,
Exactly.
then you can put a carbon filter.
Yeah,
on the
exactly.
belts. Yep.
But a lot of them will have like the hospital air and that. Just make sure the air that you're actually breathing is
It's
fresh.
breathable air.
It's
Yeah.
breathable air, right?
Yeah.
And then train the employees. That's really important. You got to train your employees on the personal protection. You got to maintain it and anything that's worn out or damaged, and then periodically review and update and evaluate the effectiveness of your program. Now, that's a program. That means you got to have something in place, okay? So the next thing on the employer responsibility is, so what are they responsible to pay for? So metatarsal foot protection. Not sure what metatarsal is, but it's foot protection. Rubber boots, steel toes, non-prescription eye protection, prescription eyewear insert or lenses for the full face respirators, goggles, face shields, firefighting, so you know the helmet, gloves, boots, proximity suits, full gear, whatever it is, hard hats, hearing protection, welding, and respiratory protections. They're required to do that. But if we go to the next slide, this is the employee responsibility. So first of all, they're
Now let's
responsible.
go back to because the boots thing, because we get asked this all the time.
Yeah, well,
you gonna
the
cover
next
that?
slide.
Okay.
Next slide.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, so first of all, they have to wear it. So when we walk into shops and they got their safety glasses and it's on their head, that's not properly wearing it.
Wait, so should I have an employee agreement that my employees are going to follow our PPE program and wear their PPE at all times?
That's where you
Yes.
have to have a PPE program, right?
So they sign that form, and then when I find them in violation, I mark them.
The problem is you both work for multi-million-dollar or billion-dollar insurance companies that have one particular thing most shops don't have, which is what?
Human resources.
An HR department that makes sure all this is covered. Most of the time, the HR department is the boss inside the
Right.
shop
Yep, yep.
that's in charge of everything. Now, dealerships usually have an HR department and have to go through that. So this is where you can get independent HR people that can handle this stuff. I actually have a friend who did it for something else, and I had him
there's
do it for a
companies
couple
that'll
of
do this
shops.
for you.
Yeah.
And he worked it out for them and helped them out a lot with it. And they're like, hey, wow, this wasn't so bad, but I have better employee agreements. I have better, employee. I want to fill out an application to get a job here. And it actually worked out pretty well for them. That this guy did this little service for them and stuff, which was smart.
And it's smart. It's not that
It's
much
not that
money.
expensive. No.
It's not that much
but
money.
The amount of money you pay, it's like insurance. The amount of money you pay
It's gonna save
versus,
you.
God forbid, getting sued is a huge savings.
That's the point, because I think when people think about PPE, they think about OSHA and they think about fining. That's great.
That's
great.
It's the personal liability lawsuit from the employee, because
Exactly.
now we're in court and the
Yep.
employee's like, well, he never told me
Yep.
I was supposed to do that. And you're
And
like,
he didn't
well,
buy
yeah,
me
I
these
did.
glasses,
I
and-
told you every
yeah.
day.
Yeah.
No, you didn't.
Where's my documentation that
where's
proves
the
it?
form
Exactly.
that said we had this?
Where's the
Yeah,
form
so
that
there was
signed
this-
that you were in class
Yeah.
and that you understood what was told to you?
So, and that's why you got to have the monthly safety meetings. Even if you got a small shop,
Everybody
you got 2 or
signs
3
in.
people, everybody signs
Yeah.
in, right?
Sometimes bilingual,
So
it's gotta
attend
be.
so it's the employee's responsibility to attend those things too. Attend the meeting and care and clean for it and inform the supervisor if they need something. So they're responsible to inform. So now we'll go to the next one. When is the employee responsible to pay for their own? So this is where it gets a little bit dicey.
Right.
So non-specialty safety toe protective footwear, so including steel toes and boots. Now, didn't I just say metatarsal footwear that they have to pay for? Now, where the line gets drawn is, did you take those boots and take them home with you?
Are you wearing them all day, all night, and you're wearing them
so
home?
so you put them on at home and you come into work, you're wearing them, and then you leave with the boots. Technically, your employer doesn't have to pay for that.
Right.
But if you're putting them on when you get to work, and then you're taking them back off, and then you're going home, then they do. Okay. Same thing with so everyday clothing such as long sleeves, shirts, normal work boots, ordinary clothing, skin creams, sun stuff, parkas, gloves, rubber boots. Again, If you're going to leave with it, then it's your responsibility to pay for it. If you're going to leave it there, it's your employer's responsibility. And then if you have lost or intentionally damaged it, you have to pay for it.
That's why a lot of companies will use like a Cintas or some sort of uniform company, and you get like 11, 5 for 1 week, 5 for the following week, and then 1 day layover.
Yep.
And they usually give you 2 winter jackets to wear and stuff, so they kind of cover you in that respect a lot of times just to make it easy. Even though you're wearing it usually home and back, but you're responsible for those amount that they give you.
Well, most people take their uniforms home and stuff.
It's easier. But no one's wearing a paint suit home, and no one's wearing this home.
Right.
Well,
but
I take it home every day.
If somebody were to say, okay, I'm going to take this helmet, I'm going to take it home because I'm going to do some grinding on my fence.
That's your own personal.
It should be your own personal. And I know.
Or you better ask the permission of the boss. I want to borrow this. Or I'm going to borrow a buff. I want to buff my boat. On my jet ski.
Yeah.
Okay, you can borrow it, but make sure if anything goes wrong, you bring it back.
Exactly.
But that's
So that's where it is, and so the employer's responsible for the protection, but the protection that would be there. So it's not fresh air. It's isocyanates. It's welding. It's whatever it is.
Right. When it comes to this, though, I would encourage people, and 3M also makes the PAPR unit as well, but I would encourage people to really sit down and do the math when you start about changing that cartridge every week. That there's still some maintenance
That can
and
get
changes
fairly
here
real.
too, but think about that.
Well, these cartridges as well. These aren't as expensive as those, but it's still a cost.
Yep, exactly. So.
Okay, so we just kind of walked through the different departments, and we don't have to go crazy with this, but obviously in the paint department, you've got isocyanates. But think about it. If you're sanding paint, isn't there chemicals in the paint that is beyond particulate? So is this the appropriate respirator to use?
Not if I'm sanding through clear base.
Right.
Right.
So not appropriate there. And then also safety glasses or a face shield. You still want to have all of that because things are flying around. Fresh air if you're equipped. Got to be wearing gloves. Chemical suits, depending on what you're actually doing. Larry and I were talking about stripping a hood with the old aircraft stripper.
Oh yeah.
Back in the day, it gets on your jeans and then burns through like a bee sting on your knees.
Yep.
Or on your legs. Skin protection and proper footwear. So now the other part of it though is what happens when the body technician walks into the paint department? They kind of fall into the same.
Yep.
Or you're allowing something to be done in your paint department that may be leaking down the shop.
Yep.
Or you do something that should be done in the paint department and you're doing it in the shop floor.
Yep.
And no one
Like,
else
we'll
has
just paint that
protection.
in real quick over here.
Blow it in real quick.
The 6H rule was one of those things. Everybody decided that if they made a 3-ounce cup, everything could be done in the body department. And while you may be compliant with the EPA,
that's
you're
not
not
OSHA.
compliant with OSHA.
Yeah.
Right.
And so that was getting a lot of people in trouble there.
Yep.
So the things to think about. Now let's talk about skin protection.
Yep.
Because this is another thing. It's summer, right? We're in Arkansas in summertime.
How many people you see wearing shorts?
Shorts, T-shirts, and in the booth.
Yep.
Right? Now, my skin is the largest sponge on my body.
And it's the biggest organ.
And as I start to sweat throughout the day, we know that isocyanates love moisture, so they love our eyeballs. And that means it loves my skin.
Yep.
So great that you put on some gloves.
Yep.
Great that you put on a respirator. You're still going to die.
Yep.
So, or you're going to end up with
Well,
isocyanates.
and then, and the thing is, isocyanates, you can't smell them.
No.
Right.
It's just a chemical that goes in, and it's not like your body gets rid of it. It builds. That's where you get the chemical sensitivity. So, that's where I'm at. And what I did is I got sensitive to it, and it's never gone away.
Yep.
And that was 30 years ago.
Yep, and that's the thing about I say cyanate sensitivity. Once you got it, you got it.
Yep.
And you're gonna, we have some people that take some medication.
Yep.
Tony from SADA is one of them. He has an isocyanate sensitivity. He was a painter before he worked for SADA because of that. And he takes medication when he knows he's going to be in a shop with a lot of exposure. And we hear about more and more cases. But that's another department, I think, in a lot of shops that runs, I don't want to say wild, but in out of our corporate environments.
Yep.
And I will say it's maybe one thing that the MSOs do really well is they do PPE and safety somewhat well, more than our independent shops. The painter doesn't get to choose how he wants to paint.
No.
It's not his option.
No.
He will wear what you tell them to
Exactly.
wear because you're legally liable for it.
Well, and if you got the chute suit and you've got fresh air supplied, then you got good gloves and all that, you're going to be okay.
Yep.
Right.
But if you're not doing all that stuff, it's eventually going to come back to haunt you. And some people have even posted on some of the groups where I wish I would have 30 years ago started
I
doing.
don't want to know now.
Yeah, because they're in a hospital twitching.
Yeah.
Oh,
And there's
because
nothing
they
they can
used
do.
the cigarette filter in their cigarette while they were spraying lacquer and then eventually urethane in their
She knows the whole cut.
Or the other famous one is where they used to cut a hole
for the
in the
cigarette.
mask to be able to put the cigarette. Well, the cigarette's got a filter in it, so it's good
Well,
enough.
we'll see. We see shops get almost there, right? The painter's in a paint suit. He's wearing a halfie.
Yep.
He's like 80% good, but
Yep.
my eyeballs and my hair and my skin and
Yep.
all that stuff's still exposed to
Exactly.
for that. So just things to think about.
Yep.
And a lot of times shops do really well here because they think about isocyanates. They don't do really well in the body shop.
Yep.
And we do really horrible with
So body, and so you got a respirator, and it could be any one of these, depending on what you're doing.
right.
So this is not just a painter thing. Because aren't you taking, in some cases, rattle cans and different chemicals and things that you're playing with? It requires this when you're working with it. Of course, proper safety gloves, depending on the task. Are they electric gloves? Are they leather gloves? Are they chemical gloves? Skin protection, guards, shields, knee pads, whatever it is.
Hearing
Earplugs.
protection.
Hearing
Absolutely.
protection not only for the hearing, but also when you're welding.
Yeah.
These ear protectors prevent the weld from getting inside your eardrum where you're. We've
You
all
mean
gotten
these aren't
hurt
for
on the ears.
these aren't just for plugging up AC lines?
No.
Oh,
no.
okay.
Yeah. Hearing protection is another one that a lot of shops get fined over because they miss that one completely, right? So decibel level is not just from the tool, right? It could be from, it's
Well,
not just from an air chisel, right?
Yep.
It could be from a
Some
buffer.
compressors are very loud that aren't
compressing.
in a separate
Well,
room.
think about detail. That buffer's whizzing
Yeah, whizzing all the time.
for 8 hours. It's
Yeah.
high pitch. Okay.
Skin protection is another one. I do
Yep.
see way too many body techs in shorts and t-shirts. I just do.
We do.
And
And it's South Florida, and it's
tennis
110
shoes.
degrees, and
Tennis shoes without toe protection.
Yep.
So
I don't know
drop
too many steel-tipped tennis shoes
No.
or sneakers.
well, you can actually buy them though.
Yeah.
You can actually just go online, put on steel-toed tennis shoes, and I think Granger
They'll have-
or whoever's got
yeah,
them. but
somebody
yeah.
makes a pair of them. Red Wing does, I think.
Yeah. So obviously, any department you're in, you got to be assessing what your risk is.
Yeah.
Are you risking, your hearing, your lungs, your skin? It's eyes, skin, ears, lungs is what we're after.
Yeah. And detail's another department that we kind of screw up on.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say estimators and detail is where we go most wrong with personal protection.
Most of the personal protection I see a detailer wear usually is some sort of apron
Yep.
or smock that's worn so he doesn't get the compound on his clothes,
Yep.
and that's about it.
Yeah.
You know.
And you got the stripe that goes right across your.
Yeah, it's always across here. Yeah, a little bit of spattle over here and a little spatter at the
Yeah,
bottom.
when the detail tech steals one of those lab coats from a painter, because the painter likes the lab coat because
Yep.
he thinks the paint suit's too hot in the summertime,
Yep.
and they passes down a lab coat, and you're just like, both of you are wrong.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's just wrong.
Yeah.
But hearing protection, there are chemicals in skin protection and
Yeah,
footwear.
well, I mean, detail. You're cleaning, wheels. You got acids, all kinds of things. So, these may or may not be the appropriate glove for what you're using. You might have to get more chemically resistant type gloves for what you're actually doing in your detail department as well.
Now, all of that is supplied by.
The shop.
Oh, so we got to make sure that we're being compensated for that because
Yep.
none of this stuff is free. I don't know a single jobber that'll drop any of this off for
Not for free. No.
So mechanical.
Mechanical, obviously, eye protection. Same thing as, and we're doing a lot more mechanical in the shops now. But chemical and fluids, definitely. We've got there Freon for the lungs. Freon, we talked about in the AC show, that if it gets, Freon's heavier than air. If it gets in your lungs, it's going to go in the bottom of your lungs and it could suffocate you. So we got to protect ourselves from that. Obviously, skin protection, footwear, whatever that is.
Do that. Now, estimator and my office staff.
Yeah.
Now, I would say put an extra little hyphen here and write adjusters out next to it.
You could, yeah.
So these are the three.
Or even the customer.
Yeah, most shops have gotten really good about not letting the customers.
I see
have
customers
the
in the
they
back.
do.
I see
You
customers,
do?
absolutely.
Yeah, I do see.
Oh, I'm gonna go look at my car, and
Yeah.
so they're
Let me
out
show
there
you your
walking.
car. I forgot
Especially
something in it.
Especially they're walking out there and they're wearing flip flops and shorts, and they're walking open toed into shops.
Hey,
I see
watch
it.
you step over the hoses.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, trip
All the
hazards.
floors. Well, I'll watch out for
OSHA
this.
trip hazards. But so let's talk about estimating, right? So this is one of the ones, especially if your estimators are out touching cars, right? Which they
Yep.
got to open hoods and do things.
Yep.
They got to have gloves. They got to have sharp metal scratch protection.
Yep.
They need to have eye protection on.
Yep.
You never know when someone's going to jump out of a car. It's happened a lot, right?
Yep.
And then that would be the same with your office staff. So how many of the office staff get in a hurry and they want to ask a tech a question, so they run out the back door and run to the tech stall, and they're standing in the tech stall while
Yep.
something else is going on, or the tech behind
But
them.
and then you got to remember open-toed shoes. And not just flip flops, but you take the sandals or that kind of
or
thing.
non-anti-slip shoes.
Yeah. I mean, that's an office thing because they're going to wind up in the shop.
Yeah, I can't think of a single, and I do, I got in trouble for this. When I very first started at State Farm, there's a picture I'll show you guys. We used to wear, it was kind of like working in Enterprise, right? So we would wear suits and heels and skirts or whatever. And finally, not about a year into my employment, they got smart and realized that there was no way that would work because we would have to change shoes in the parking lot to go in and out of shops.
Right.
There's not a single reason on this planet that I can think of that a pair of heels needs to be in a body shop at all.
No.
So I know a lot of people think that your front office people, you want them to look a certain way to do customer service, but if they are going to pass that lobby door out into the shop for any reason whatsoever,
not with heels.
No heels at all.
Nope.
And I know shops, in fact, I was just in one 2 weeks ago, and in the office, she had her open-toed shoes, and she goes, oh, hang on, let me change my shoes. Slipped those off, slipped into a pair of loafers, and away we went. So, you know, shops
I can't tell you how many times
I've
I've walked into a shop and I have my cowboy boots on and I almost kill myself walking on the floor.
Yeah, because you're in the detail department when you slip.
Because I got a pair of cowboy boots on. I don't have a rubber-soled pair. I got a pair of leather bottom, and they're super slippery. And then you walk past stuff that's just wet or even a coating of dusting. And all of a sudden, you feel your feet slipping out from underneath you. It's like, okay, I got to go back to the truck and get my
happened to me
my
one
work
time
boots.
in cowboy boots that are leather.
Yeah.
Same thing.
So that's one thing, your estimating staff, your office staff, your adjusters, your customers, you've got to be cognizant of what they're wearing and how they're dressed. You also need to be cognizant of what they're walking past if they're going to walk in. So if I've got an estimator that's going to go work with a teardown tech, that's a whole different level of PPE.
And that's why we say, have your teardown blueprinting area not be in the main part of the shop. Have it be just like, this is what we do here. That's all we do here.
Or curtain it off.
Yeah.
But very rarely will this get you past OSHA when your estimators run out wearing just eye protection.
Exactly.
So a lot to think of there, which goes back to if you have a safety person in your shop, that's their role. You've done the safety assessment to basically walk through, not a test, but a walkthrough to see
to assess it.
What exposures are.
And again, there's companies that'll do this pretty reasonably.
You've got a plan for it. And they'll also make sure that your people, so let's go through some other
areas. So if you lift up a car, you don't just leave it on the floor jack. We see these posted online all the time. It's got to go on jack stands.
Yep.
Okay. And then, GFI outlets. You can't plug something in, especially in wet areas and that. Get a GFI outlet. And then ladders. How many times do you see somebody's going to paint the top of a Sprinter van? They got two 55-gallon barrels and that 2x10 on top, and they're walking across paint. You can't do that. There's no railing.
Apparatus made for that.
Yeah, and then for everybody that likes to take a folding chair and use that as a ladder, want to make sure that we do that. So here's the numbers. So it's right off the OSHA's website. So if your violation is willful, which means you intentionally and knowingly commit or violate, the employer commits with plain indifference to the law, it's $70,000 per violation.
Now, what would be willful?
Well, if the
so pretty common knowledge.
Well, he just gave an example. Two 55-gallon drums with a piece of 4x2 or 8x4 sitting on top of cans, and you're walking back and forth wearing a dust respirator with no eye protection, hand protection, and just spraying away.
Yeah.
That
or
possibly.
Maybe my tech has come to me about 3 or 4 times and asked for something,
That's a
and
problem.
I've been like, I ain't paying for that.
Yeah.
But the tech would have to, be able to prove that.
Well, but
somehow.
the employee, remember, they're responsible for asking for it. That's part of their responsibility. And then if the employer says no, I'm not doing that. I'm not buying different things. That's where you get in there. Now, serious violation is a violation where where is substantial probability that death or serious physical harm could result, and that the employer knew or should have known of the hazard. Well, if somebody's walking through and they're not buying the proper things, they should have known. It's 7.
Oops, sorry, hit the button.
Playing video game there.
How many times have you been told not to touch stuff during live shows?
So
we've
bottom line is,
specifically gone over this with you.
it's a $7,000 fine.
Yes.
If you should have known. Okay. Other than serious, a violation that has a direct relationship to safety and health, but probably would not cause death or serious physical harm, it's $7,000. So $70,000 to $7,000, and if it's repeated, OSHA may impose penalties up to $70,000 for each repeated violation.
Right.
So you get a $7,000 fine, and then it repeats, it goes up to $70,000.
Yeah, so a couple things we learned during the presentation is that
CIC,
it's not I came in and I found out that you didn't have the right respirator. That's $7,000.
Yeah.
I came in, you don't have the right respirator. You have 15 technicians,
Yep.
15 times 7. That's your fine.
Well, and what the agent said, because somebody asked the question, I forget who, but basically he said the average visit when OSHA walks in is 4 violations. That's average. Now some have a lot more,
Right.
and that's at $7,000.
A lot of times it's exit signs not lit, fire extinguishers that are not
Yep.
clearly seen, or a sign that goes to them. Not that they're out of date, but those are like 2 of the most popular ones. The slippery floor type thing with no sign that says floor slippery when wet.
Or
and stuff.
how about the office that has the attic where they're storing parts up there?
Right.
And they got the stairs and they don't have an adequate railing. That's
Or the
another
light
one.
doesn't automatically come on.
Yep.
In some cases, yeah, so it depends on where you are.
But when it comes to PPE, that adds up quickly. So
Yeah.
if you've got 4 or 5 techs in your shop and a couple of painters and a detail guy, and you're going to get hit per guy.
I don't know how many shops have an extra $100,000 hanging around doing nothing that they want to pay to OSHA.
No.
And then on top of it, it's responsibility. You're an employer. You have the right to know. You have a duty to know and protect your employees.
Right, and again, it doesn't matter, how I pay them. It only matters that they're in my shop.
Yep.
So let's talk about a little bit on what that looks like when it comes to estimating, because that's really kind of
Yep.
where it becomes
Yep.
an issue. Right?
So it's always the included, not included conversations. So walk us through it, Larry.
Well, when you go to set up like a sort of earlier picture on it, you're working on a car next to me doing some body work, and Mark's disassembling a car to get it ready to go on top of the frame machine, and I'm welding a quarter panel on. I have to get not only welding screens on this side to protect you, but welding screens on this side to protect you. I might even have to say, hey, look, I got to cover your car and your car with blankets, okay? Because there can be sparks that go up high and fly. I have to go ahead and
This is different than the cover car in the paint department.
Yes, and I have to cover my car with non-flammable blankets, and then areas that the blankets can't attach to or be clipped to, I'm gonna have to put the 3M spark paper, especially on some glass items and stuff like that, and make sure that there's no open canvases. I'm gonna have to make sure I have some sort of fire suppression for what I'm working on, either an ABC or a D, or ABC and a D, both there at the same time.
How many shops do you see that have Ds?
Very rare.
Very few.
Yeah.
And some magnesium.
And
Should
screens
have.
are PPE. I think screens are definitely PPE. They're not PPE for the guy working on the car.
Nope.
They're PPE for the guy working next to you.
The next
But there's also the conversation of the time. So we got to set up the area.
Right.
So we're going to do a couple welds, and we got to set up the area to protect the other employees around, as well as the other
And you
vehicles
should be doing
that are
your
around.
test welds, especially with aluminum, in the same area, same position, same spot you're doing the welding on the car.
Yep.
You don't want to go to a separate area of the shop and do practice welds where the temperature might be different, which will affect aluminum settings, versus steel where you can do it almost anywhere, but you do it right there in that area. So there's going to be an issue with people walking by that could accidentally see the spark or be looking at you going, wow, that's cool, and see that blue UV spark.
Yeah,
that could
but
actually hit
as
their
soon
eyes.
as they see it, though, it's too late.
It's too late. That's why it has to be through a
flash burn.
screen.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
So and you should have, in some states, some requirements. I know in construction fields this is big. You have to have somebody there that's basically like a fresh air inspector. So you're welding, and I'm going to be on the outside of the screen doing this. You know, I can see peripherally that you're welding, but I'm trying to look for any sparks flying over and hitting anything like on Kristen's car, or a pile of crap sitting off to the side
Well, if you're
that
sitting
might
there,
ignite.
if you're sitting there inside a car, let's say you're doing an inner rocker, you're inside the car.
You can't see what's going on outside.
You can't see what's going on outside. So we almost need somebody to go, and especially when we start dealing with foams. If that stuff starts burning, I know of a shop in Seattle where it started to burn, and they dumped 4 fire extinguishers on it. The problem was it was so hot, it just kept reigniting.
Yeah.
And they tried to grab a hose, but it was outside and frozen. So the shop burned down.
And I would even suggest I built a welding cart with a Rubbermaid cart, and it had a water pressurized tank on it for water. It had ABC, and it had a D fire extinguisher. It had a whole bunch of weld blankets. It was a Rubbermaid maid's cart. For like the hotels. It had all the welding blankets on there. It had a whole bunch of clamps, the spring-loaded type of clamps and stuff to hold it in.
Hold the
It
blankets
had some
up,
powerful magnets that we had extra from the BMW program, super strong magnets, earth magnets. And we had it was funny, remember when you were a kid, you had that big plastic flag so people could see it right out there. We have that on there, the yellow flag, so that if it's on the opposite side of the shop, you can look, there it is, and go grab it and roll it over. And on the side, we have 2 big rolls of 3M Spark paper with the cutter that's on there.
So you're basically the welding PPE cart.
Yes, that's it. So all you have to do is just like I talked earlier about the hybrid cart, which would be a smaller cart. This is a big Rubbermaid cart, almost this big, and you just roll it over, and you got everything that you need. God forbid something goes wrong, you have everything right there to be able to put a fire out or do anything with it.
So the things to think about here is that as a shop owner, I am responsible for paying for all of this.
Yes.
I'm also responsible for the training and et cetera, but that may mean that I pay
but you're in
not
charge
one
also of
for all
enforcing
the
it.
equipment,
Yep.
but 2 for maybe if I have to hire an outside company to help me keep all this straight. That's a cost and that's expensive.
That is a cost,
There is only one thing that brings money into a collision repair center, and that is what?
Fixing the car and the estimate.
That's the estimate. The estimate's the only thing that brings money in. There's a lot of things that takes money out the back door, but there's only one thing that brings money in. So as a shop owner, you need to be thinking about, am I charging for all of these things? Because 1, I'm doing them, or you should be doing them, and then 2, I have to pay for them. So I have to have a compensation. So Larry always jokes the only thing that he hasn't figured out how to charge for yet is air and water.
2 types of air, compressed air and breathing air and water. I haven't figured that out yet.
I'm pretty confident that one day he's going to figure that out. But it may be that you have to adjust your labor rate. It may be that you adjust your materials, your body materials, your paint materials, charged to compensate all the filters and
Well, there's a lot of shops who don't
cartridges.
charge or collect for, I should say, for body shop materials or buffing materials. So you're losing on that end of it there. The other big aspect is many of them don't know what their door operational rate has to be to just break even. And if you want to include this stuff in part of your overhead, like electricity, okay, or paper for your printing machine or printing cartridges, have your accountant calculate it for you, and he'll tell you, look, you have to charge, and I'll use some sort of ridiculous number. The going rate in the market right now is $10 an hour labor rate. You need to charge $11.50 just to break even. So that means every hour you work at $10 an hour, you're losing $1.50 per hour. You're not going to be in business. You're running a zero-sum game. You're spinning your wheels, and the only reason now that you don't realize you're broke is because you're busy, but you're broke. And that's an old saying.
And you're making up for it in volume.
Yeah, trying to make it up in volume, and it doesn't work that way. You're not selling a product.
You should use more of these.
So this is why you need to speak to your accountant and have him tell you this is what your operational costs are.
Right.
And then this is what you need to charge. To charge for a profit, well, here's the markup to make a profit. So if I have to make $11.50, maybe I charge, $13.25 or $13.10 an hour to work on the car, and that'll cover all my costs and give me a nice little profit margin that I can work off of.
It may be thinking about that you might have to have an additional tech to do the safety watch while performing a particular operation. So you may have a safety line on your estimate and be able to explain that and what it is. But as a shop owner, this, like we always say, right? I can choose what to charge for. I can't choose what not to do.
Right.
So I must supply all this PPE. I must supply it regularly. That's going to get expensive. If we really had all the shops doing cartridges, and I hear 3M and I hear my jobbers now, I hear NCS going, wait, every week.
Thank you.
So they're going to be walking around with cartridges now like the cotton candy salesman at the baseball game. But if I'm doing that like I'm supposed to do, that's going to get expensive. That eats into the profit, the net of the shop, and so there has to be compensation.
And you can't say, well, okay, so I'll just can we get another week out of that? I mean, this is the health and safety.
Then I'm back to willful, right? And now that's a $70,000 fine.
Exactly.
So there's a lot to do there. So if you have any questions about PPE, what should be supplied by your employer, what should be supplied by you, basically I always tell a shop that the tech is really on their shoes and everything after that's on us to make sure they're dressed appropriately and safety and everything is considered there. So if you have any questions about what you should have as a tech, what you should be supplying as a shop owner, what some of the companies, we have a list of companies that help you manage this, what the training options look like, how to run a safety meeting if you've never had them. You can always reach out to us. Like we said, doing PPE is a monthly thing. We have to do a show a month.
Every month,
to even get remote. And as materials come out and change, it's constantly evolving. So there's
Can we
a
talk
lot
about
to do.
PBRs?
No.
No.
Oh.
That's later.
Who pays for the PBRs?
Go away, Larry. it's time. We will see you next month on Repair University Live. We will be here with Equalizer and the glass guys. We're going to be talking about removing glass, putting it in. We're also going to be talking about why it may be time to bring glass full-time into your facility and stop subletting it. So,
like I've been saying for years.
We'll see you next month.
See you
Bye,
next
guys.
month.